It did take me a little while to really start following Jesus fully. Okay, I understood. I started reading the Bible at that time, and I remember calling my guru a sort of spiritual mentor in the New Age and just saying, "Why did you not tell me how powerful the teachings of Jesus were?" I mean, I was offended at him because all these other gurus and leaders and they all talk about what Jesus says. The New Age world does that, but I had never gone to the source. When I finally read the Sermon on the Mount, I was blown away. And so anyway, but I didn't follow Jesus right away. I just didn't understand. My parents had raised me in a situation where they told me the Bible was false. It was actually written by an evil king to oppress the masses.
Wow.
My parents were politically, they considered the Peace and Freedom Party to be way too conservative. In fact, for about a year, we ran our household, the commune, on Mao Zedong's Red Book. Like, we were pretty full-on communistic in our perspective. And so, I just had no context for scripture at all. So, but here's what happened is I hitchhiked the next summer up to a big gathering called the Rainbow Gathering. It's still going on, but about 20,000 people in the wilderness, kind of trying to experience this tribal reality together, kind of a precursor to what's called Burning Man now, if you understand Burning Man, which I've been to and I've spent time ministering there. But anyway, on my way there, I got dropped off hitchhiking in Browning, Montana, in the center of an Indian reservation, the Blackfoot Indian Nation. And I walked into the general store to ask directions, and I was met at the door and did that dance at the door that you do with a long-haired Indian guy in full Indian garb, a Blackfoot man named Tiny Man Heavy Runner. And he said, "What are you doing here, you hippie?" And I basically said, "I'm trying to find the rainbow people." And he says, "We hate the rainbow people because they're a bunch of, upper middle class white people trying to pretend to be Indians. Well, but I'll help you find them." So we drove around, we couldn't find them. He took me to his house and said, "Spend the night at our house." And that next morning, his house was a teepee, by the way. So I spent the night in a teepee. That next morning, I woke up and met his grandparents. And they told me their story. And again, can I share another supernatural thing that might blow some minds? But
yes, please.
But I talked to the old man. He was in his late 70s. He was born at the turn of the 1800s to 1900 century. Okay, so he was born in the late 1890s. And he was raised in a Catholic mission school. He was beaten by the priests on a regular basis. He was forced to eat soap if he spoke in his native language. So he grew up hating Jesus. And as soon as he was out of the orphanage, he just ended up consuming tons of alcohol. Actually, he destroyed his stomach lining. He was given 3 weeks to live. He went to a bar to drink himself to death. And Jesus appeared in the bar. And everybody saw him. 30 people. I met people afterwards when I got there. This was 40 years earlier, but I met people that had actually seen Jesus appear. And they screamed and they ran out and they dove under tables to hide. It's like they didn't know what was going on. And the Lord spoke to the man and said, he said, "Sober up and follow me." Turned to the wife and said, "Fast for 4 days and your husband will be healed." And that was the beginning of their ministry on the reservation.
Is their ministry still going there?
They passed away since that time. Okay. I was up there a couple of years ago, got to visit their gravesite, pay my respects, Anyway, so I lived with them for 6 months. And that's when my discipleship really started.
Wow.
Because I had no foundation before. I visited Sabina's land. I went to their fellowship and their Bible studies, but nobody took me under their wing. And this old guy actually did. He basically invited me to live with them. And I would sit down with him every day and study the Bible. And it was just, and I just met so many people that had experienced miraculous healing and had so many amazing encounters with God in that situation. I also had a significant encounter about my future where God spoke and I actually heard an audible voice. And it's a longer story. I won't go into it, but it had to do with my call to ministry.